it's time for our daily reading of Jacinda Ardern, a different kind of power. Now, we left Jacinda yesterday being woken up early after a night of sleep with Clark Gayford at the end of the 2020 election to be told, yes, there was another case. And as I said, here was a woman obsessed by COVID cases. In the next 3 pages of the book, she deals entirely with the release of the vaccine. That is all the vaccine is worth out of 300 pages is 3 pages. But then we come, and here is just a funny conflagrance of this whole reading the Jacinda book process. We're going to come to the parliamentary protest, which was the moment that the platform came into being in January of 2022. I went down to Parliament. The first thing we assigned to cover was the parliamentary protest. And let's just take up that issue and read through her views on that. And don't forget, she has dealt entirely with Pfizer, the rollout of the vaccine, the mandates, only 3 pages out of 300. So then she says, protests are generally welcome at Parliament. When there is one, we even provide power and speakers and waist-high fences designed to keep everyone safe, nutters away from us. MPs will regularly visit those who gather on the forecourt. Sometimes MPs even speak at protests, including me. But at all those protests, the protesters eventually went home. The first night, roughly 100 people camped on the Parliament grounds. Over the next 3 weeks, some 3,000 people would occupy either the grounds of Parliament or the surrounding streets. Some protested peacefully, I'd say most, but others harassed business and local residents. They blocked off streets and erected makeshift toilets. A few ripped masks off the faces of commuters. Early in the occupation, and this is where it's all very interesting, Trevor Mallard, who is Speaker, was technically in charge of Parliament grounds, set up speakers on balconies that faced the forecourt and blasted first Barry Manilow and then Baby Shark song on repeat. Someone else, I don't know who, turned the parliamentary sprinklers on. It was Trevor, you doofus. That's why he's on his way home from Dublin. But the occupation did not end. Each morning I would arrive at my office, look out the window and observe what had happened overnight, whether the police had moved barricades or whether there were any new parts of the ground where tents had been erected. Before long, showers went in. It was like watching a village form in real time. The energy in the crowd swung between a festival-like atmosphere and one of barely contained rage. I heard the protest speeches, saw the signs. I saw my own image with a Hitler moustache, monocle and Dictator of the Year emblazoned above my face. I saw the gallows, complete with a noose, which people said had been erected for me. I saw the American flags, the Trump flags, the swastikas. At one point, I even saw the glint of the literal tinfoil hats that some people had begun to wear, convinced that their headaches and flu-like symptoms were related not to the wave of COVID currently spreading through New Zealand, but to electromagnetic fields they believed the government was emitting. They wore the tinfoil hats as a complete piss take, Jacinda. Good Lord. In my life, I have been a Mormon amongst non-Mormons. It's a strange jump. A progressive among conservatives. A woman in a mostly male environment. No matter what, I always found a way to discuss, debate, disagree, to be human first and a leader second. I understood now that to the crowd occupying Parliament, I was neither. You could have been if you'd gone down there and talked to them. The protesters demanded to meet with politicians. Only one MP, David Seymour of the ACT Party, did. I refused. How could I send a message that if you disagree with something, you can illegally occupy the grounds of Parliament and then have your demands met? Because you're a socialist. And you and your socialist lefty mates have been doing that for ages, Jacinda. No, I would not meet the protesters, but I would take a lesson from them. I'm sure that was meant to read, teach them a lesson. While the occupation was about vaccines and mandates, for some it was more than that. It was about trust, or more accurately, mistrust, what manifested itself at the occupation was also much bigger than New Zealand. It was a palate challenge the world over. People now couldn't even agree on what was fact and what was fiction. People in the same neighbourhoods or communities were living in different realities, and that made solving our problems even harder. As I looked out over the lawn of Parliament, I felt sure that globally we would only solve this problem together. Then why didn't you go and talk to them? After 23 days, the police launched an operation to move the occupation. 250 arrests were made and 40 police injured. In the final hours, protesters set fire to the Parliament playground, a cheerful place where Wellington toddlers and school children played most days. Dark smoke plumes billowed through the Poutakawatre's Norfolk pines that had stood for more than 100 years. Gardens that commemorated our suffrage movement with white camellias were trampled. Bricks were uprooted from the ground and turned into missiles. Whatever had brought the protest to Parliament, by the end it was clear that it was a place and institution they didn't believe in anymore. I still think about this time so often, and not just the occupation, but the 2 years that preceded it, those long days and impossible choices, and yes, I think about regret. The word regret contains so much certainty. Regret says you know precisely what you would have done differently and the consequence of doing so. But we don't get to see the counterfactual, the outcomes of the decisions we didn't make, the lives that might have been lost. One thing I am certain of is that I would want things to have been different. I would want a world where we saved lives and we brought everyone with us. Perhaps that is the difference between regret and remorse. But when I think about that time, I also think about this. We came out of COVID with one of the highest vaccination rates in the world and fewer days in lockdown than nations like the UK. And during this time, our country's life expectancy actually increased. So someone approaches me to tell me that they thought all our choices were wrong, maybe expressing themselves less politely than that, perhaps even with fists raised and their face twisted with fury, or in an expletive-filled rant. That's when I remember that all those hard, imperfect decisions saved 20,000 lives, and the person in front of me might just be one of them. And my ankles still look good. Oh, so there it is, the parliamentary protest from the Prime Minister's point of view. Geez, I wonder what you think of that. And boy, that kind of got me on a level. I was there, I was part of history.